In the United States, we have this sense of expansiveness and freedom. We have the West and the frontier, the mountains, the mystery that lies out there. And with that, we have a sense of freedom, all the options and opportunities that a person could truly ever want. And when I think about that, and I'm sure as many of you do too, as Americans, we often really have this belief that we should be free, and we know the problems in the word should. We should be free, and we should act to be as free as possible. And whenever we lose our freedom or someone takes it from us, or we believe we do, we often become indignant, feisty, and furious. And the real question is, how much of this do we actually really want, and what is actually good for us? So I'm coming into the conversation today with a concept from Kirk Schneider, who's the leader of the Existential Humanistic Institute. And he's an existential psychologist, and what he'll talk about is this need to expand and contract our life, and that we can understand our human life as these continual phases of expansion and contraction. Now, when you think about expanding, these will be things like going to school, meeting new people, learning new hobbies. Contracting will be times that are much more stressful. Okay, I don't have time for this. Some of these family members aren't good for me, so I'm going to cut them out. Actually, because I have so much work to do, I'm probably going to let go of my gym membership. And continuously, we're negotiating and navigating this. Now, at face value, it seems like we always want to be as expansive as possible. So, if we go back to the Wild West metaphor of the United States, in the West, in that space, in the expansion, there's opportunity and there's risk involved. So, I like to use the idea of a shepherd and a sheep. With the shepherd and the shepherd can do many things to keep the sheep safe. So, we imagine that the sheep is given the greatest opportunity to expand. It looks west. It sees the mountains and the trees and the forest. It can imagine roaming and playing everywhere and anywhere in the entirety of all this space. That sounds great. However, there are things like wolves and hunters and cliffs and raging rivers, things that will kill cute little sheep and create mud. Now, on the other hand, the shepherd may decide this is completely unwise. And what they actually do is they create a small fence. They put the sheep in the fence, 10 feet by 10 feet. Now, this is the most restricted world that the sheep could live in. It's narrow, but it is the safest. Now, does that mean it's the best for it? So we can quickly realize that there's many, many good reasons to have some structure and have more expansion. Right? Because if we're overly constricted, we're going to be miserable and feel depressed. And if we're overly expansive, we're going to feel anxious and nervous. Fair enough? Easy enough. So then, in human life, what does this actually look like? Well, perhaps I want more expansion, so I'm going to quit my job. Oh, that's too much. Maybe I need more restriction. So, maybe I'm not going to become an accountant because the math makes me nervous. Maybe I'm not going to get a sports car. In fact, what if I make a commitment? What if instead I develop a phobia, a fear of something? That's a restriction, one imposed on myself, one that I can actually change if I was willing to do the work for it. So when we look at expansion and contraction, there's a responsibility, a promise we make to ourselves about what life is it that we want to live. What work are we willing to do to expand our life to where we want it? Where will we willingly choose to constrict our life? So with that, think about it, create the life that you want.